Maya Rodriguez stared at her phone, watching the rain streak down her apartment window. The text message from her manager at the Grand Plaza Hotel was clear. "Can you cover tonight?" Anna called in sick and were desperate. She closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. Working double shifts was becoming her normal routine, but she had never worked the front desk before. Maya was used to cleaning rooms and restocking towels, not dealing with fancy guests who expected five-star service. But the extra money meant she could make another payment toward her mom's medical bills. And right now, every dollar counted. "Okay. I'll be there in an hour," she typed back. Even though her whole body ached from teaching third graders all day, being a substitute teacher meant irregular paychecks, and the hotel job helped fill the gaps. Some weeks she felt like she was barely keeping her head above water. Maya grabbed her work clothes and headed out into the storm. The bus ride to downtown took 40 minutes, giving her time to worry about everything that could go wrong. What if she couldn't figure out the computer system? What if important guests complained about her service? She had rent due next week, and her mom's next round of chemotherapy started Monday. The Grand Plaza Hotel stood like a shining tower against the dark sky. Maya had always felt a little intimidated by the marble lobby and crystal chandeliers, even after working there for 3 months. Tonight, with rain soaking through her jacket, she felt even more out of place. Mrs. Patterson, the evening manager, met her at the staff entrance. "Thank goodness you're here," she said, leading Maya through the back corridors. "I know you've never done front desk, but it's really not too complicated. Just check people in, answer the phone, and smile a lot." The computer system looked like something from a spaceship. Mrs. Patterson showed her how to pull up reservations, assign room keys, and process credit cards. Maya tried to remember everything, but her mind was spinning with all the different screens and buttons. "Most of our guests tonight are already checked in," Mrs. Patterson explained. "You might get a few late arrivals, but nothing too crazy. The night security guard is Roberto, and he's been here for years. If anything weird happens, just call him." Maya nodded, trying to look more confident than she felt. The manager gathered her things and headed for the door. "You'll do fine, honey. Just remember, the customer is always right even when they're not." And then Maya was alone behind the massive front desk, surrounded by the quiet elegance of the lobby. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, and soft jazz music played from hidden speakers. She practiced pulling up guest information on the computer, making sure she could find everything quickly if someone needed help. The first few hours passed smoothly. A businessman checked in around 8, followed by an elderly couple who needed help finding the elevator. Maya managed both interactions without any problems, feeling a little more confident each time. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Around 10:30, a woman called complaining about the temperature in her room. Maya found the maintenance contact list and arranged for someone to check the air conditioning. When the guest called back 20 minutes later to say the problem was fixed, Maya felt proud of herself for handling it properly. The rain kept pounding against the lobby windows, and Maya found herself watching the street outside. The hotel sat in the heart of the business district, usually busy even at night, but the storm had emptied the sidewalks. Only a few cars splashed through the flooded intersections. She was updating guest folios on the computer when her mom called. "How's the new job going, Mia?" her mother asked, her voice weak from the latest round of treatments. "It's going okay, Mom, just different from cleaning rooms." Maya kept her voice cheerful, not wanting to worry her mother. "How are you feeling tonight?" "Tired, but okay. Don't work too hard, sweetheart. I know you're doing all this for me, but I worry about you burning yourself out." Maya's throat tightened. Her mom had always put everyone else first, and even now, sick and worried about mounting medical bills, she was thinking about her daughter's well-being. "I'm fine, Mom. Get some rest and I'll call you tomorrow." After hanging up, Maya walked around the lobby to stretch her legs. The hotel really was beautiful, with artwork on the walls and fresh flowers arranged in expensive vases. She wondered what it would be like to stay in a place like this just for fun, not because you were running away from something or attending a business meeting. The grandfather clock chimed 11 and Maya returned to the front desk. She was getting comfortable with the routine when she heard the lobby doors open. A delivery driver dropped off some packages for guests, chatting about how bad the weather was getting. "Roads are flooding everywhere," he said. "Be careful if you're driving home tonight." Maya thanked him and signed for the packages. She didn't drive anyway, so the bus would have to get her home safely, flooded roads or not. At least she had money for a taxi if the buses stopped running. The lobby grew quiet again, except for the storm outside. Maya was organizing the guest mailboxes when she heard the doors open again. She looked up, expecting another delivery or maybe a guest coming back from dinner. Instead, she saw a man who looked like he'd been through something difficult. His expensive clothes were wrinkled and damp from the rain, and he carried only a small leather bag. He moved slowly across the lobby, glancing around as if he wasn't sure he was in the right place. Maya straightened up and put on her best customer service smile. The man approached the desk and she could see exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that came from more than just a long day. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his wallet. "Good evening," Maya said warmly. "How can I help you tonight?" "I need a room," he said quietly, his voice carefully controlled. "Just for tonight, maybe longer. Something quiet if you have it." Maya pulled up the available rooms on her computer. "Of course, sir. I have several options available." She could sense something was bothering him, beyond just being caught in the storm. "Are you okay? You look like you've had a rough evening." The man paused, studying her face as if trying to decide whether she was genuinely concerned or just being polite. "It's been a long day," he said finally. "A very long day." Maya processed his credit card, noting the name but not recognizing it. He seemed like someone carrying a heavy burden, and her natural instinct was to help however she could. That had always been her way, even when she barely had enough to help herself. "The elevators are just past the restaurant," she said, handing him the key card. "And sir, if you need anything at all during the night, please don't hesitate to call the front desk. Sometimes talking to someone can help, even if it's just about room service or extra towels." For the first time since he'd walked in, the man's expression softened slightly. "Thank you. That's very kind." He picked up his bag and headed toward the elevators, leaving Maya with the strange feeling that something important had just happened. Though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was, Maya watched the man disappear into the elevator. But something about their brief interaction stayed with her. In her 3 months at the hotel, she had checked in plenty of tired business travelers and tourists, but this felt different. The way he had looked around the lobby, like he was making sure no one had followed him. The careful way he spoke, as if he was used to people hanging on his every word. And those hands. She couldn't stop thinking about how they had trembled when he handed her his credit card. She looked down at the registration in the computer. David Chen, it read. The address was local, which seemed odd for someone booking a hotel room. Most of their guests were from out of town. Maya shrugged and filed the information away. People had their reasons for staying in hotels even in their own city. Maybe he was having work done on his house, or maybe he just needed to get away from something for a while. The rest of her shift passed quietly. Maya answered a few phone calls and helped a guest who had locked himself out of his room. By 6 in the morning, she was exhausted but proud of herself for getting through her first night at the front desk without any major problems. Mrs. Patterson arrived early to check on how things had gone. "Any issues?" she asked, scanning the guest log. "Pretty quiet night," Maya replied. "One late check-in around 11:30, but everything else was routine." Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly. "Good job. Anna should be back tomorrow, but if we need you to cover again, would you be willing?" Maya hesitated. The work was stressful, but the pay was better than her usual housekeeping shifts. "Sure, I can do it." As Maya rode the bus home, she found herself thinking about David Chen again. Something about his sadness had reminded her of her own struggles. The way he had looked so grateful when she offered to help with anything he might need. It was the same expression she saw in her mother's eyes when neighbors brought food during her treatment weeks. Maya spent the weekend teaching a weekend enrichment program at the community center, trying to help kids who were falling behind in reading. It was volunteer work that didn't pay anything, but it fed her soul in a way that her paying jobs never did. Watching 8-year-old Carlos finally sound out a complete sentence made all the stress and exhaustion worth it. Monday evening, Mrs. Patterson called again. "Anna's still sick, and we really need someone tonight. Can you cover the F row?" "And desk?" Maya agreed, even though she had been hoping for a quiet evening at home. The extra money would help her make a bigger payment on her mom's medical bills, and she was starting to feel more confident about handling the front desk duties. When she arrived at the hotel, the day shift supervisor filled her in on any special guests or events. "Room 847 extended his stay," she mentioned casually. "He's been here since last week. Very quiet, keeps to himself. Maya checked the computer and saw it was David Chen. Something made her curious about why he was staying so long. Most business travelers were only in town for a few days. She wondered if he was having family problems or if something had happened with his job. The evening started busy with several check-ins and a small conference group that needed help finding the meeting rooms. Maya handled everything smoothly, feeling much more comfortable than she had the previous week. Around 10 o'clock, things finally calmed down. She was organizing some paperwork when she heard the elevator doors open. David Chen walked into the lobby, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt instead of the wrinkled business clothes from the week before. He looked around the lobby as if seeing it for the first time, then walked over to one of the leather chairs near the front desk. "Good evening, Mr. Chen," Maya said warmly. "How are you settling in?" He looked surprised that she remembered his name. "Fine, thank you. I hope I'm not bothering you by sitting here. I couldn't sleep and my room feels a bit small tonight." "Of course not. The lobby is for all our guests." Maya noticed he looked less exhausted than the first night, but there was still something troubled in his expression. "Can I get you anything? Coffee or maybe some tea?" "That's very kind of you, but I'm fine." David settled into the chair and picked up a magazine from the side table, but Maya could tell he wasn't really reading it. He kept glancing toward the windows and checking his phone. Maya tried to focus on her work, but she couldn't help noticing how David would tense up every time someone walked through the lobby doors. When a delivery driver came in with packages, David actually stood up and moved to a chair that was more hidden from view. "Expecting someone?" Maya asked gently, hoping she wasn't being too nosy. David looked up from the magazine he was pretending to read. "Not exactly. More like hoping someone doesn't find me." The honesty in his answer caught Maya off guard. Most hotel guests kept their personal problems to themselves, especially with staff members they barely knew. But something about the late-night quiet and Maya's genuine concern seemed to make David want to talk. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Maya asked, keeping her voice low even though they were the only people in the lobby. David was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Maya noticed a thin scar across his knuckles that looked old but significant. "Not trouble exactly, more like disappointment. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to find out they weren't who you thought they were?" Maya thought about her ex-boyfriend who had left when her mom got sick and the medical bills started piling up. "Yeah, I have. It's one of the worst feelings in the world." "Exactly." David set down the magazine and really looked at her for the first time. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to dump my problems on you." "You're just trying to do your job." "Sometimes talking helps," Maya said, echoing the words she had said to him the first night. "And it's been pretty quiet here anyway." David smiled slightly. "What about you? Do you like working here?" Maya considered how to answer. She could give him the polite response about how the hotel was a great place to work, or she could be honest like he had been. "It's not my dream job," she admitted. "I'm a substitute teacher, but that doesn't pay enough to cover my expenses. My mom is sick and the medical bills are pretty overwhelming." "I'm sorry to hear about your mother. What does she have?" "Cancer. She's responding well to treatment, but insurance doesn't cover everything." Maya was surprised at how easy it was to talk to this stranger. "I love teaching, but I've always wanted to do more. Maybe open a learning center for adults who never got a chance to finish their education." David's expression grew thoughtful. "That sounds like important work. What's stopping you?" Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Money mostly, and time. It's hard to chase dreams when you're working 3 jobs just to pay bills." "3 jobs?" "Teaching this place, and I tutor kids on weekends at the community center. The tutoring doesn't pay, but it keeps me connected to why I wanted to be an educator in the first place." David nodded slowly. "You work with kids who need extra help?" "Kids and some adults. A lot of people in my neighborhood never had good educational opportunities. Some parents are trying to help their children with homework, but they struggle with reading themselves." Maya felt passionate talking about this, more alive than she had felt all week. Education changes everything. It opens doors, builds confidence, breaks cycles. "You really believe that?" "I've seen it happen. I've watched kids go from failing to thriving, just because someone took the time to help them understand that they're not stupid. They just learn differently." David was quiet for several minutes, and Maya worried she had talked too much about herself. But when she looked at him, he seemed deep in thought rather than bored. "You know," he said finally, "I've met a lot of people who talk about making a difference, But most of them are more interested in talking than doing. You're actually out there changing lives even without the resources you wish you had. Maya felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. I just do what I can. That's exactly what I mean, David said. Not everyone would work 3 jobs to take care of their mother and still volunteer their time to help others. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. Sorry, I should check this. The message was short. Can't sleep. Thinking about you working so hard. Love you, mija, Maya typed back quickly. Love you too, Mom. Get some rest. When she looked up, David was watching her with a strange expression. Everything okay? Yeah, my mom just can't sleep. The medications mess with her sleep schedule sometimes. Maya tucked her phone away. She worries about me working so much, but I worry about her medical bills. It's like we're both trying to take care of each other. She raised a good daughter, David said quietly. Maya felt tears threaten behind her eyes. It had been a long time since anyone had said something that kind to her. Thank you. That means a lot. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds the soft jazz music and the rain that had started falling again outside. Maya found herself hoping that David would figure out whatever had brought him to the hotel, and that whoever had disappointed him would realize what they had lost. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya found herself looking forward to her evening shifts at the hotel. David had extended his stay indefinitely, and she had started to expect their late-night conversations in the lobby. The day staff mentioned that he was polite, but kept to himself, never asking for anything beyond basic room service. But when Maya was working, he would appear around midnight, settling into his usual chair with a book or magazine. Their talks had become the highlight of Maya's long days. After dealing with demanding guests or struggling through a particularly difficult substitute teaching assignment, sitting in the quiet lobby and talking with David felt like a peaceful break from the chaos of her life. How was your day? David asked one Tuesday night, looking up from a business magazine as Maya finished checking in, a late arrival. Exhausting, Maya admitted, sinking into the chair behind the front desk. I had a class of 28 fourth graders today, and half of them were convinced that math was invented to torture them personally. David chuckled. Were they right? Sometimes I wonder, Maya said, laughing despite her tiredness. But then one kid finally understands long division, and their whole face lights up. That makes all the chaos worth it. You really love teaching, don't you? Maya nodded. Even when it's frustrating. There's something amazing about watching someone discover they can do something they thought was impossible. She paused, then added, What about you? What kind of work do you do? David's expression grew careful. I'm between projects right now, taking some time to figure out my next move. It was the same vague answer he had given before, and Maya sensed there was much more to the story. But she had learned not to push. David would share what he wanted to share when he was ready. That can be scary, she said instead. Not knowing what comes next? Yeah, it is. David set down his magazine and looked directly at her, especially when the last project ended badly. Makes you question everything you thought you knew about people. Maya heard the pain in his voice and felt her heart go out to him. Do you want to talk about it? David was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the empty street beyond the lobby windows. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. Someone I considered a friend. They took advantage of that trust in ways I never saw coming. I'm sorry. That's awful. The worst part is how naive I feel now. I pride myself on being good at reading people, but I completely missed the signs. David rubbed his forehead, looking older than his years. It makes me wonder if I can trust my judgment about anything anymore. Maya thought about her own experiences with betrayal and disappointment. Maybe the problem isn't that you're a bad judge of character.
Maybe the problem is
Some people are really good at hiding who they really are. David looked at her with surprise. You don't think I should have seen it coming? I think caring about people always involves some risk. If you go through life expecting everyone to hurt you, you'll end up alone and bitter. Maya spoke from her heart, thinking about how many people had told her she was foolish to trust after her ex-boyfriend left. The fact that someone took advantage of your trust says something about them, not about you. You're very wise for someone so young, David said softly. I don't feel wise. Most of the time I feel like I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Maya checked the computer screen out of habit, but the hotel was quiet. But I've learned that the people who hurt you usually reveal their true character eventually, and the people worth knowing, They stick around even when things get difficult. David nodded thoughtfully. Your mother is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her too. She's the strongest person I know. Maya's voice grew warm talking about her mom. When she first got diagnosed, I was terrified. But she just looked at me and said, we're going to fight this thing and we're going to win. She never once complained about the treatments or felt sorry for herself. How is she doing now? Better. The doctors are optimistic about her latest scans. But the financial stress is still overwhelming sometimes. Maya hesitated, then decided to be honest. I lie awake some nights adding up numbers, trying to figure out how to make everything work. The teaching pays enough for rent and groceries, but the medical bills are in a whole different category. Hence the 3 jobs. Hence the 3 jobs, Maya agreed. Though I have to admit, I'm starting to enjoy the front desk work more than I expected. When I first started here, I was terrified of dealing with important guests. But most people just want to be treated with kindness and respect. David smiled. Present company included? Especially present company. You've made these late shifts much more enjoyable. Maya felt herself blushing slightly. I hope that doesn't sound unprofessional. Not at all. I've been looking forward to our conversations too. David's expression grew serious. To be honest, these talks with you have been the best part of my day for weeks. You have a way of making everything seem less complicated. Maya felt a warm flutter in her chest. I like talking with you too. You're a good listener, and you don't make me feel stupid for caring so much about things. Why would anyone make you feel stupid for caring? Oh, you'd be surprised. I've had people tell me I'm wasting my time with the tutoring program, that those kids will never amount to anything anyway, or that I'm foolish for working so hard to pay my mom's medical bills when I should be focused on my own future. David's jaw tightened. Those people are idiots, Maya laughed at his blunt response. That's what I think too, but it's nice to hear someone else say it. I mean it. I've met plenty of people who claim to care about making a difference, but when it comes down to actually sacrificing something for others, they disappear. You're the real deal. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. That really means something to me. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Maya found herself studying David's face. He had kind eyes, but there were lines around them that suggested he had seen more than his share of stress. She wondered what kind of business he was in, and what had happened to make him so cautious about trusting people. Can I ask you something? Maya said suddenly. Sure. Are you actually from here? Your address on the registration is local, but you've been staying here for weeks. David's expression grew guarded again. I am from here. I just needed to get away from my usual routine for a while. Sometimes you need distance to see things clearly. Are you running from something or towards something? I'm not sure yet, David admitted. Maybe both. Maya nodded, accepting his answer even though she suspected there was much more to the story. Well, whatever you're trying to figure out, I hope it works out the way you want it to. What about you? Do you ever think about what you'd do if money wasn't an issue? Maya's eyes lit up. All the time. I'd open a community learning center, but not just for kids. I'd have programs for adults who never got to finish high school. Job training classes, computer skills, financial literacy. Maybe even offer childcare so parents could attend classes without worrying about their kids. That sounds incredible. Have you looked into what something like that would cost to start? I've done some research, but it's way beyond what I could ever afford. The building alone would cost more than I'll make in 5 years, and that's before you factor in staff, materials, equipment. Maya's voice grew wistful. It's a nice dream, though. Dreams have a way of becoming reality sometimes when you least expect it. You think so? I know so. I've seen it happen. David's voice carried a conviction that made Maya look at him more closely. Sometimes the right opportunity comes along, or you meet the right person who believes in your vision. Spoken like someone who's made a few dreams come true himself. David smiled mysteriously. Maybe a few. Maya was about to ask what he meant when her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. Everything okay at home? David asked, noticing her concerned expression as she read the message. Mom can't sleep again. The anxiety keeps her up sometimes. Maya typed back a quick response. She worries about me working so much, but I worry about the bills. It's like we're stuck in this cycle where we're both trying to take care of each other. Have you told her about your learning center idea? She's the one who gave me the idea in the first place. When I was little, she always talked about how education was the key to everything. She only made it through 8th grade before she had to start working, and she always regretted not being able to continue. Maya's voice grew soft. She'd be so proud if I could actually make it happen. Then maybe it's not just a dream. Maybe it's a goal worth working toward. Maya looked at David with new interest. You really think it's possible? I think anything is possible when someone cares as much as you do. The question is whether you're willing to take risks to make it happen. What kind of risks? Trusting the right people. Being open to opportunities that might seem too good to be true. Not letting past disappointments keep you from believing in possibilities. Maya had the strange feeling that David wasn't just talking about her dreams anymore. It sounds like you're speaking from experience. Maybe I am. David stood up and stretched. I should let you get back to work. Thanks for another good conversation. Thank you too. Sleep well, David. As Maya watched him walk toward the elevator, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to David Chen than met the eye. The way he talked about opportunities and taking risks. The expensive clothes he wore even when trying to dress casually. The careful way he chose his words when talking about his work. Everything about him suggested someone who was used to being in control, yet here he was, hiding out in a hotel and talking about trust and betrayal. Whatever his story was, Maya found herself hoping that he would find the answers he was looking for. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to hope that those answers would keep him around long enough for her to figure out why she looked forward to seeing him so much. Maya noticed something was different about David the moment he walked into the lobby that Thursday night. For the past month, their late-night conversations had become a comfortable routine, but tonight he looked like a man on the edge of a breakdown. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and he clutched his phone like it was the only thing keeping him connected to reality. He paced back and forth near the windows instead of settling into his usual chair. Maya had never seen him so agitated. Even during their conversations about trust and betrayal, he had maintained a calm, controlled demeanor. Tonight, that control seemed to be slipping away, David, Maya called softly from behind the front desk. Are you okay? He stopped pacing and looked at her as if he had just remembered where he was. Maya, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. You're not disturbing me. But you look upset. What's wrong? David ran his hands through his hair and stared at his phone screen. My lawyers have been calling me all day. They need an answer by tomorrow morning, and I honestly don't know what to tell them. Maya had learned over the past weeks not to push David for information he wasn't ready to share, but tonight felt different. Tonight he seemed like he needed someone to talk to, even if it was just the night clerk at a hotel. An answer about what? She asked gently. David looked at her for a long moment, and Maya could see him wrestling with some internal decision. About whether I'm going to fight for something I spent 15 years building, or whether I'm going to walk away and let the people who betrayed me win. That sounds like a big decision. The biggest decision of my life. David finally sat down in his usual chair, but he perched on the edge like he might jump up and start pacing again at any moment. And I'm completely lost. For the first time in my adult life, I have no idea what the right choice is. Maya saved her work on the computer and moved to the chair across from David. The lobby was empty except for them, and she could tell he needed someone to listen more than she needed to worry about staying behind the front desk. Maybe talking through it would help, she suggested. Sometimes saying things out loud makes them clearer. David stared at his hands, particularly the scar across his knuckles that Maya had noticed that first night. I've been lying to you, he said quietly. Not about important things, not about who I am as a person, but about the details of my life. Maya felt a flutter of concern, but something in David's tone told her this wasn't the kind of lie that would hurt her. What do you mean? My name isn't David Chen. I mean, David is my middle name and Chen was my mother's maiden name. But it's not the name most people know me by. He looked up at her with eyes full of exhaustion and something that might have been fear. My real name is David Michael Reynolds. Maya waited for that name to mean something to her, but it didn't. Okay, she said simply. Why did you change it? David let out a short, bitter laugh. Because David Michael Reynolds is the CEO of Reynolds Tech Industries, or was until 3 weeks ago when I discovered that my business partner, the person I trusted most in the world, had been stealing from the company and selling our proprietary technology to our competitors. Maya stared at him, trying to process this information. Reynolds Tech Industries. She had heard of that company. It was one of the biggest technology firms in the city, maybe in the whole region. Which meant David wasn't just successful. He was wealthy beyond anything she had ever imagined. "You're a CEO," she said slowly. "I was a CEO right now. I'm a guy hiding in a hotel room because I can't stand the thought of going back to an office where half the people probably knew what was happening and said nothing." David's voice grew harsh. 15 years I spent building that company from nothing. 15 years of 18-hour days of believing I was creating something meaningful, of trusting people who turned out to be lying to my face. Maya tried to reconcile this information with the man she had been talking to for weeks. The David she knew was thoughtful and kind, someone who listened to her dreams and encouraged her to believe in herself. But he was also clearly used to being in control, used to having resources and options that most people couldn't imagine. "When you say stealing," Maya said carefully, "are we talking about a lot of money?" "We're talking about enough money to buy this hotel, and the building next to it, and probably the whole block." David's laugh was completely without humor. "The legal team estimates he took at least $50 million in direct theft, and the technology he sold to competitors was worth maybe 10 times that much." Maya felt dizzy trying to imagine numbers that large. That's huge. It gets worse. "Because I trusted him completely, I gave him access to everything. Client lists, financial records, research and development projects that we'd spent years developing. He didn't just steal from me. He stole from every employee who counted on that company for their livelihood, every client who trusted us with their business." Maya was quiet for a moment, trying to understand the scope of what David was telling her. "What happens if you don't fight? What happens to all those people?" "The company probably goes under. The board of directors has already lost confidence in my leadership. They think I should have seen this coming. Our biggest clients are already talking about taking their business elsewhere. If I walk away now, everyone who works there will probably lose their jobs within 6 months. And if you do fight, then I have to go back and face a company full of people who either betrayed me or watched me get betrayed and did nothing. I have to rebuild trust with clients who think I'm incompetent for not seeing what was happening under my nose. I have to testify in court against someone I considered my best friend." David's voice cracked slightly. "I have to admit that everything I thought I knew about building relationships and leading people was wrong." Maya felt her heart breaking for him. She had seen David as someone who had his life figured out, someone confident and successful. But underneath all that success was a person who had been deeply hurt by someone he cared about, just like she had been. "David," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" He nodded, still staring at his hands. "That first night you came here, you looked like someone who was running away from something. But these past few weeks talking with me, learning about my mom and my dreams, you've seemed different, calmer, more like yourself. What's your point?" "My point is that maybe the problem isn't that you're bad at judging people. Maybe the problem is that you were surrounded by the wrong people." Maya leaned forward in her chair. "The David I've gotten to know over these past weeks is someone who listens to a hotel clerk talk about her dreams and makes her feel like those dreams matter. Someone who encourages people to take risks and believe in possibilities. That doesn't sound like someone who's bad at building relationships." David looked up at her with surprise. "You think I should go back?" "I think you should ask yourself what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be someone who walks away when things get difficult, or someone who fights for the people who are counting on you? But what if I fail? What if I go back and I can't fix any of it?" Maya smiled at him, the same smile she gave her students when they were afraid to try a difficult math problem. "Then at least you'll know you tried, and maybe along the way, you'll figure out how to build something better than what you had before." David was quiet for several minutes, and Maya could see him thinking through everything she had said. Finally, he looked up at her with something that might have been hope in his eyes. "You know what the crazy part is?" he said. "Sitting here talking with you, I've remembered why I started the company in the first place. It wasn't about the money or the status. I wanted to create something that would help people, something that would make a difference, and maybe that's your answer then. Maybe instead of trying to rebuild what you had, you figure out how to build what you actually want." David stared at her with an expression of wonder. "How did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just know what it's like to have people count on you, and to feel like you can't let them down no matter how hard things get." Maya thought about her mother, about the kids she tutored, about all the people who depended on her in small but important ways. "The difference is, you actually have the resources to help people on a scale I can only dream about. What if I told you that you don't have to just dream about it?" Maya felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean? David leaned forward, and for the first time all evening, he looked genuinely excited about something. What if, when I go back and rebuild my company, I built it around ideas like yours? What if instead of just focusing on profits, we focused on actually making a difference in people's lives? I don't understand. Your community learning center, your programs for adults who never got to finish their education. What if that wasn't just a dream? What if that was the first project of a completely different kind of company? Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. David, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. David reached across and took her hands in his. Maya, you've spent the past month listening to me figure out who I want to be. You've shown me what it looks like to care about people without expecting anything in return. You've reminded me why building something meaningful matters more than just building something profitable. Maya looked into David's eyes and saw sincerity there, but also something that scared her. You're talking about changing your whole life based on conversations with someone you barely know. I'm talking about changing my life based on conversations with someone who sees the world the way I wish I had. Never stop seeing it. David squeezed her hands gently. Maya, you've already changed my life. The question is whether you'd be willing to let me help change yours. Maya sat in stunned silence, trying to process what David was offering. The learning center she had dreamed about, the programs she had sketched out in notebooks late at night, the possibility of actually helping people on a scale she had never imagined possible. But more than that, she was trying to process the look in David's eyes when he talked about building something meaningful together. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about two people who had found something in each other that they hadn't even known they were looking for. 6 months later, Maya stood in the bright, welcoming lobby of the Rivera Community Learning Center, watching as Rosa Martinez carefully sounded out words from a children's book to her 5-year-old grandson. The 53-year-old grandmother had been one of their first students, and seeing her read confidently after years of hiding the fact that she couldn't read was exactly why Maya had dreamed of this place. The Learning Center occupied a beautiful renovated warehouse in Maya's old neighborhood, with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light. Computer stations lined one wall, while comfortable reading nooks with colorful cushions filled another area. The smell of fresh paint and new books still lingered in the air, reminding Maya that this miracle was still very new. The evening classes are about to start, called Jennifer, the center's literacy coordinator. Maya had hired her using the same philosophy David had taught her. Find people who cared more about the mission than the paycheck. Maya smiled and walked toward the main classroom, passing walls covered with artwork from their students. There were essays written by adults who were learning to read for the first time, photograph, as from their job training graduation ceremonies, and thank you letters from parents whose children were now getting help with homework because their moms and dads could finally read. The transformation of her life still felt surreal sometimes. 6 months ago, she had been working 3 jobs and barely keeping her head above water. Now she was the director of her own organization, with a staff of 12 people and programs that were already changing hundreds of lives. David had kept his promise in ways that exceeded even her wildest dreams. After their conversation that night in the hotel lobby, he had gone back to Reynolds Tech Industries and fought the legal battle of his life. The process had been brutal, involving months of court hearings, depositions, and media scrutiny. But David had emerged victorious, not only recovering most of the stolen money but also completely restructuring his company around a new mission. Reynolds Tech now focused exclusively on developing technology solutions for social problems. Their first major project had been creating a digital learning platform specifically designed for adult literacy programs. The software was so effective that learning centers across the country were asking to use it, and David was licensing it for free to any nonprofit organization. But the learning center had been David's personal priority from the beginning. He had insisted on funding it entirely himself, and Maya had watched in amazement as he threw himself into every detail with the same intensity he must have once brought to building his business empire. He had hired the best architects, the most experienced educators, and had personally interviewed every staff member they brought on board. "How are the new students settling in?" David asked, appearing beside Maya as she watched the evening literacy class begin. Maya still felt a little flutter in her chest when she saw him unexpectedly. Their working relationship had evolved into something deeper over the past few months, though they had both been careful to take things slowly. Building the learning center together had shown Maya sides of David that impressed her even more than his business success. She had watched him spend hours patiently explaining computer programs to elderly students, had seen him remember personal details about every family they worked with, and had witnessed his genuine joy when students achieved their goals. "Really well," Maya replied. "We have a waiting list now, which is both exciting and heartbreaking. I hate having to tell people they need to wait for the next session. So we expand," David said simply. "I've been looking at some properties across town. There's a perfect building that could house twice as many students." Maya turned to look at him. "David, you've already invested so much in this place. You can't keep funding everything yourself forever." "Watch me," David grinned, then grew more serious. "Maya, 6 months ago I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars on paper, but I felt completely empty inside. Now I have less money than I've had in years, and I've never been happier. This work, what we're building together, it's the most important thing I've ever done." Maya felt her heart warm at his words, but she also felt a familiar concern. "I just don't want you to feel like you have to carry all the financial burden. We should be applying for grants, finding other donors. We will, but right now I want to focus on proving that this model works. Once we have the data to show how effective our programs are, other funders will be eager to support us." David paused, watching as one of their students successfully completed a practice job interview with a volunteer. Besides, what good is having money if you don't use it to create something meaningful? Maya had learned over the past months that this was how David approached everything. He didn't just want to help her build a learning center. He wanted to help her build a movement that could transform how society thought about adult education. He had already connected her with education experts across the country, had arranged for their program to be studied by researchers at 3 major universities, and was constantly pushing her to think bigger than she had ever imagined possible. "Speaking of meaningful," Maya said, "I have some news that might interest you." "Good news?" "The best news. Mom got her latest test results back yesterday. The doctors are officially calling her cancer-free." Maya felt tears of joy spring to her eyes, just as they had when her mother had called with the news. David's face lit up with genuine happiness. "Maya, that's incredible. How is she feeling?" "Like she can conquer the world. She's already asking when she can volunteer here. I think she wants to help with our new family literacy program." Maya laughed, thinking about her mother's enthusiasm for getting involved with the center. She keeps saying that having her daughter run a place like this makes all the struggle worth it. "Your mother is an amazing woman. I can see where you get your strength from." Maya felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. Over the past months, David had become an important part of her life in ways that went far beyond their professional partnership. He had been there for every milestone with her mother's treatment, had celebrated every success at the learning center, and had somehow become the person she most wanted to share both good news and challenges with. "David," Maya said, gathering her courage to say something she had been thinking about for weeks, "I know we agreed to take things slowly because of the business partnership, but I need you to know that working with you has been the best part of this whole experience." David stepped closer to her, his expression growing tender. "Maya, these past 6 months have shown me what my life was missing before I met you. It wasn't just purpose or meaning, though you definitely helped me find those things. It was partnership with someone who shares my values and pushes me to be better than I thought I could be." Before Maya could respond, they were interrupted by excited voices from the main classroom. Through the windows, they could see their adult literacy students cheering for Carlos, a man in his 40s who had just read an entire paragraph aloud without help for the first time. "That never gets old," David said softly, watching Carlos beam with pride as his classmates applauded. "No, it doesn't," Maya agreed. "Every single breakthrough reminds me why we're doing this." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their students work and learn and support each other. Maya thought about that night 6 months ago when David had first walked into the hotel lobby, looking lost and betrayed and exhausted. She thought about her own desperation at that time, working multiple jobs and feeling like her dreams were impossible. "Can I tell you something?" Maya said. "That first night when you checked in, I never imagined that helping one troubled guest would change my entire life." "Funny," David replied, taking her hand in his. "I was just thinking the same thing. I came to that hotel to hide from my problems, but instead I found someone who helped me face them and build something better. Maya squeezed his hand, feeling grateful for every twist of fate that had brought them together. So what happens next for us? David smiled, the same warm smile that had caught her attention that very first night in the lobby. Next, we change the world, one student at a time. And if we're very lucky, we get to do it together for a very long time. As if to emphasize his point, Jennifer approached them with a clipboard full of applications from people wanting to enroll in their programs. Sorry to interrupt, but we just got 15 new applications for next month's session. And Channel 7 wants to do a story about the job training program helping people get hired. Maya looked at the applications, each one representing someone who was ready to change their life through education. She thought about the scared, overwhelmed woman she had been 6 months ago, working the night shift and dreaming of impossible things. You know what the best part is? Maya said to David as they walked toward the classroom together. What's that? We're just getting started. David laughed and pulled her closer. I was hoping you'd say that. 6 months ago, Maya had filled in for a sick coworker and checked in a guest who would change everything. Now, as she watched their students discover the power of education and felt David's hand warm in hers, she knew that sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the simplest acts of kindness to a stranger who needs it most.